Hello everyone, Magnus here, and about 7 months ago I did a video regarding what I anticipated to be the 6D Mark II's specs. Now I didn't have any information, this was my own speculation on what the camera would be, but recently it's been pretty much discussed everywhere thanks to Canon Rumors posting some specs that they got leaked to them somehow. And what they believe will actually be included in the 6D Mark II. Now, my honest opinion when it comes to spec leaks or rumors is they're just that, just rumors. When it comes to actual specifications, we won't find out until, of course, it's announced. Now, the anticipated announce date is actually in the upcoming week, so I plan to do a follow-up video on what I predicted versus what actually was in the spec list. But right now, all we've got is this rumor sheet, and I want to compare that to what I anticipated about 7 months ago and see how close I was or how off base I was. So let's start off with megapixel count. From Canon Rumors, they anticipated that it would be a 26 megapixel CMOS sensor, and I anticipated it would be around 28. Now the difference between 26 and 28 is minimal. I really wouldn't be surprised if Canon went in either direction. I would be surprised if they went much lower, and very surprised if they actually go much higher, like 30 or above. But I don't anticipate that happening. So I still believe that it'll be around 26 to 28. So it was pretty on point. But I also anticipated that there would be no AA filter, and I still believe that there'll be no AA filter. That wasn't mentioned, but to me that makes the most sense. They also rumored that it would be dual pixel autofocus. I also believe the same thing 7 months ago. It makes perfect sense. Why not have dual pixel autofocus on this camera? So, you know, 5D Mark IV had it, 80D had it, 70D had it. They're just making sure that they use that everywhere because Canon's bodies are getting known for their dual pixel autofocus, which is amazing, best in class. Next rumor feature is the Digic 7 image processor. That's what they said they would put in there. The 5D Mark IV had the Digic 6 Plus processor, and I believe at the time, which was 7 months ago, that this would have the same processor, just on the 6D body. Now the rumor is it would have Digic 7, but I still believe that would be Digic 6 Plus processor because this is Canon's entry-level full frame, and to keep costs down, you'd be able to do that by using a little bit of an older image sensor rather than the newer Digic 7 processor. I don't know what the cost is, and to me, I can't even begin to guess what it would cost them, but I still believe that they would tend to stick to the older processor that the 5D Mark IV had and throw it in the 6D. Next, which was really a bummer for me, is that they said that the video would be 1080p 60 frames per second, and that's max. You would get no 4K in this camera. 5D Mark IV had 4K, but this one wouldn't have 4K. Now, I had predicted that 4K would be there and it would use the MJPEG codec. However, in my honest opinion, I believe that they'll still put it in there. And the reason being is just that they've already designed the ability to record 4K off of their 5D Mark IV. They're going to throw this in here just to, make sure it's still a key selling point and to differentiate it between its APS-C sized sensor bodies and such. So I don't think that 4K would be not included, but of course you're going to get the MJPEG codec, which is easy for them to use, and just throw it in here to keep costs low. But if we get 60p, then there's little to differentiate it between this and, say, the 80D. So again, we'll see, but for right now, it is what it is. Canon Rumors said 45-point autofocus, and they're not sure how many would be cross-type. In my video 7 months ago, I had anticipated 11 autofocus points and 1 cross-type. Do I believe it'll have 45? No. I still believe that it'll have 11 autofocus points, regardless of what Canon Rumors says. Um, Again, they're trying to keep costs down. They're trying to differentiate it between the 5D Mark IV, and they're going to keep that, probably spread out the points a little bit more, so you have a more coverage, but you're not going to get more than 11. But we'll see when it's announced. Moving on, you've got 3-inch, very angled LCD touchscreen. So they're saying that it's going to be touchscreen, just like I said 7 months ago, but they're actually going to do a flip out and, flip screen. I still don't believe that. 7 months ago, I said it's not going to have any articulation, and I'm standing by the fact that they're not going to do articulation. If that was on the mindset, then they would have done that with the original 6D to have an articulating screen. They didn't put it in their 5D Mark IV. They're not going to put it in the 6D. You may have seen it that it's going to have that, and a lot of people are excited about that, but my opinion when it comes to Canon Rumors is that it's just rumors. I mean, if you guys anticipated, if you guys remember, not too long ago, we had a bunch of news improvements that were anticipated to come to the 5D Mark IV when it came to its video codec, and the upgrading to, reducing the 4K crop, changing the codec to something a little bit more comparable rather than MJPEG, and the C-Log. All of that was rumored off of Canon Rumors, and what did we get? Nothing but C-Log. It was a huge disappointment, and I don't think that's fair to Canon because they didn't announce most of that, and to then be looked at negatively when they actually still are improving the camera is just unfair. So again, articulating touchscreen, I do not anticipate that being an upgrade. They had anticipated 100% viewfinder coverage. I had anticipated around 97% viewfinder coverage. I still believe it's going to be 97%, but the difference is minimal when it comes to 100%, 97%, though 100% is definitely a lot better. Again, I think it's done on purpose to differentiate between the 6D and the 5D Mark IV. Moving on. They also anticipated a slightly taller and deeper body than the 6D. So if you notice, the 6D and the 5D Mark IV are noticeably different in size. The 5D Mark IV is a lot bigger, heavier. 6D is not as big, but that's what it's meant for. It's supposed to be a lot lighter, easier to use, full frame body. And now they anticipate that the next 6D is going to be slightly bigger, at least from the body. But my opinion is that I don't anticipate that happening. I think it's going to be just as small, if not same exact size. Maybe a few tweaks, button tweaks are there, but I anticipate it to be the same body layout because they're trying to keep this very simple, keep the electronics very simple in this thing, put that full frame sensor in here, and just let it work. So very similar layout, lighter body. Moving on. Now, a couple of these next anticipated specs actually also came from Nokashita Camera, was actually who leaked this information. So they had a couple of more bullet points that I didn't have in my original Canon Rumors spec list, so I'll just go over them. First, they had anticipated that the ISO would go up to 40,000 rather than 32,000, and then be expandable to 102,400. Now, in my original video, I said it'd be 32,000 to match that of the 5D Mark IV, not 40,000. I believe it's still going to be 32,000. To me, it doesn't make sense to it actually outshine in ISO performance when compared to the 5D Mark IV. Granted, the sensor, this sensor itself, and when picking up light, was actually slightly better than the 5D Mark III. But then when 6D Mark II comes out, you don't want it to blow, especially low light performance. You don't want it to blow this thing out of the water. It just wouldn't make sense. you don't want to bastardize sales to the 5D Mark IV. That's just not fair. So moving on. 5-axis image stabilization is also something that they mentioned. Now, having in-body image stabilization would just be incredible. I think that's just a huge plus. But do I see that happening? Hell to the no. They're not going to throw that in there. Again, they're trying to keep costs down with this camera, and it wouldn't make sense to put in-body stabilization, something that would cost more, in a less expensive camera and jeopardize the sales of the 5D Mark IV. That's not going to happen. Not at all. And then there's a couple of things that I mentioned about this camera or the 6D Mark II that the specs didn't mention. And that's going one, the SD card slot is going to be UHS 2 to support 4K recording. Now, whether they throw 4K recording in or not, I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of at a loss. It would make sense if they didn't, but it would make more sense if they kept it in there. But I do believe that they'll want to throw in a faster card there if they do keep 4K, so that they don't get a massive amount of complaints on why no one can record 4K unless they have, just one specific type of card, which works for the 5D Mark IV, which is a SanDisk Extreme Pro. Those cards work to record 4K, and that's it. Every other card that I've tried really doesn't work with 4K. So, but by expanding it to UHS 2, I think you'd have a lot easier of a time to do that. 5.5 shots per second is what I anticipated, rather than 4.5 burst rate. So I think that'll be in the new 6D Mark II. And then, of course, a mic jack, but no headphone jack. They'll keep that the same, just like the 6D had. So pretty much that's it. That's my discussion and reaction to at least recent news of what this thing is going to have, and what Canon Rumors says it's going to have versus, what I believe it'll have. Because Canon Rumors, I take their spec lists with a grain of salt, because you really have to wait until Canon officially makes an announcement to foresee anything. But what do you guys think? Do you think I'm wrong or off base with my opinion? Let me know in the comments below. It's always helpful to see everyone else's perspective, and I'm seeing a ton of videos with everyone's reactions to the spec list. But I do not take this spec list as a definitive yes, this is what the camera is going to have, because unless it comes from Canon, I'm not buying it. So as always, give me a like, share, and as always, you could make my day if you subscribe today, and if I hit 1K, I'll take a pie to the face. That's right. If I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to take a pie to the face, because I was dared to do such. So I'll do it on camera. Right now, I'm not there yet, but when I do, you'll see that happen. I guarantee you. As always, Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys later.